Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Phi Tau Sigma webinar series for members and partners hosted by the Future Directions Committee. My name is Vishal Manjunatha, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We are so glad you could join for this important conversation. Today's webinar titled Insights from New Faculty, What I Wish I Knew Before Starting a Faculty Role. This session is brought to you in collaboration with the Phi Tau Sigma Student Relations Committee, and we're thrilled to have a panel of recently appointed faculty members who will share their experiences, lessons learned, and advice for those considering or preparing for a career in academia. Let us take a moment to introduce our panelists. The first panelist is Dr. Karuna Kharel, who is an assistant professor of food microbiology at Louisiana State University's School of Nutrition and Food Sciences. Her research focuses on microbial food safety, especially in low moisture foods and fresh produce. She investigates the persistence of foodborne pathogens and develops sustainable post-harvest interventions. Dr. Kharel also teaches and mentors students in applied food safety research, which she describes as the most fulfilling part of her job. The next panelist is Dr. Claire Murphy, an assistant professor and extension specialist at Washington State University, based at the Prosser Irrigated Agriculture Research and Extension Center. Her work centers on produce food safety, foodborne pathogen ecology, and environmental monitoring. She is deeply engaged with the produce industry to support regulatory compliance and informed decision-making through research and outreach. The next panelist is Dr. Gülsün Akdemir Evrendilek, hopefully I didn't butcher the name, who serves as an associate extension professor and the seafood technology and food safety specialist at the University of Maine. Her work advances food safety and quality through non-thermal processing technologies and education. She leads initiatives addressing seafood safety, PFAS contamination, and FSMA compliance. And she collaborates with academia, industry, and tribal communities to strengthen food safety system. Our fourth panelist and the last panelist is Dr. Cicero Pola, an assistant professor in the Department of Food Science and Human Nutrition at Iowa State University. His research is in nanoscale food engineering, including the development of biosensors and functional nanostructures for use in food and agriculture. His group uses a multidisciplinary approach to solve critical challenges across the food supply chain. Thank you all for joining us today. Would the panelists like to add something which I missed on their bio? I suppose not. Then now we'll move into our panel discussion. I'll start with some prepared questions, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. Any of the panelists can answer the questions and add to the questions. Due to time constraints, we'll stick to at least like 5 minutes per question. I'll give a reminder if we exceed the time limit. The first question is about getting started in academia. What do you wish you had known about balancing teaching, research, service, and other responsibilities before starting your position? Any of the panelists, feel free to unmute. And
Of course, I can go first. So I am now 2 years into my position at Washington State University. And if I think about what I wish I had known about balancing, I think it's one of those things where the to-do list is never done. And so it took me a little bit to realize that like I'm never going to be able to get everything done on my list. So I spent a lot of time thinking about prioritizing what I need to spend my time on first, because it's really important to me that I also, don't let this job take over everything outside of my work hours. So I try to do a really good job during work hours of thinking about how much time is this going to take? How much output to so I'm primarily extension, 70% extension is my job. So like, what is the benefit to the stakeholders? How is this going to help them? And I think about like what I need to prioritize that's going to have the most benefit to them and what is the most timely thing I need to approach to help them with any of the issues going on. But then I also think about, is this something I can just get done in 20, 30 minutes and I can cross it off my list? And so I think that was something that, to me, I spent a lot of time thinking about, how do I prioritize? And someone also told me, and I've tried to take this approach, is that there are certain things I have to get done and then certain things I have to do well. And so thinking about what things just need to get done versus which ones do I really need to focus on making sure it's done thoroughly and done to the best that I can. And I think that's also helped me kind of think about how I approach different tasks in this job.
Yeah, I can go next, and I completely agree with Claire. Um, Sorry about my voice. I'm just recovering from COVID, so I might have a little bit of cough here and there. But that was one of the issues that I had as well when I started, is like there's so much of things to be done. I had this long list of to-do list. Your day it's fragmented between juggling your emails, from potential students. You have your mentoring your own students in the lab. You need to set up your lab as well, right? Depending on your position. If it's research heavy, yes, you got to have a lab, set it up, do all the biosafety approvals. You have grants coming in at the same time, and have all those deadlines as well. And then depending on if I have a teaching appointment, so the teaching preparation needs to be done. So it's like you want to do best, but which one portion do you take first, right? So early on, I started with like the 4-quadrant method, where it's like, okay, urgent and important, but not necessary. Urgent and important, not urgent, but important, like how do you segregate, and then be like, okay, these are the 4 tasks that I need to do right now, and the rest of them can stay for like next week or so. So during my early days, the mental load was heavier than expected, but not just from one task, but constantly switching from like, okay, this, and then another role, and then another role. So just juggling and trying to prioritize, block off your calendar. That's something that I started learning early on. And someone also told me, what does your first 100 days look like, right? When I was in my postdoc, my supervisor told me, once you get into your faculty position, know this answer to this question: what does your first 100 day look like? So you need to have it planned. What do you want to do in your first 100 days? So with having that mindset and just going with the flow, but again, not everything is going to go as planned. Also, you need to be ready to have that plan B, and always ready to like think, okay, if this didn't go well, I'll do this. So those are my things that I learned in my early days.
May I go third?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I agree with you guys. I had the same experiences, and it's also challenging to starting new job and new position. I was already teaching and a faculty member in another country, so I recently moved to United States. So I might be like example for the international students. So when you start up all over again, it's a like new discipline, new area, and everything is new. So it's okay to struggle a little bit, and then it is important, but it's also important to understand what is your new position is required, like what are the priorities and how you can start up, how you can plan your future in this job. And remember, this is a very long journey, so it's impossible to establish everything in first year or like first couple months. And anyway, first couple months is like will be filled with like the orientation, all the training and everything. And sometimes it's okay to feel like overwhelmed because you have to go through all the orientation. It's a new environment, so you have to get to know the people. You have to get to know how you start up your extension or research or teaching if you are like doing all 3. And you have to kind of like uh, remember the percentage of your duties. So some of us have like whole extension, like 100% extension. Some of us like 50%, 50%, or like 30. So it's important to understand what is your job requirement, what are expectation from you. So if you know this expectation, if you understand truly your position, then it is easy how you can get that. And it is always okay to ask for the help. Don't hesitate to ask from help from your coworkers or your peers, even though somebody from another institution, because remember, everybody is going through the whole process. You are not the only one starting all over again and starting how to how to understand to do the things done. So as Karuna said, it's 100, like first 100 days could be important, but also important to plan how you are going to start up and how you are going to continue your position. You know, like you have like short term, you have midterm, and you have long term achievements. So just prioritize your things and then give importance what is urgent. And then it's always good to work with the co-workers and then plan the things ahead of time. Of course, there are ups and downs. There are like some things that you are unplanned. These are okay. It's important to learn from our mistakes also. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with my colleagues. I would say one of the most important things that you have to keep in mind is to be aligned with your position responsibility statement. It's pretty much like how you're going to be evaluated. And, you know, one of the things that, I mean, I knew that that would be important, but I didn't know how crucial it was. It's time management. You're going to have like a lot of opportunities to just like do something else instead of what you actually are supposed to. You know, you're gonna get like way more emails that you're used to. Some of them will caught your attention, but that might be not exactly what you have to do for your position. So I think managing your time wisely, it's one of the things that, I mean, I'm still struggling with that, honestly. Learning, you're gonna fail a couple of times. You have to like try different strategies, but at the end of the day, make sure that you are aligned with what your position responsibility is. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, life happens to everybody and you cannot control everything.
Thank you, panelists. If I could sum that up, I could say plan, prioritize, and be flexible. So moving to the next question, how did you approach building relationships with new colleagues and integrating into your department and institution? Or moreover, how was the transition from a student to a faculty, and how did you overcome the imposter syndrome?
I don't know if we have really overcome it, but we are trying every day. I think that's what I would say. But in my case, it might be a little different because I graduated from LSU and then I moved to University of Florida for 2 years for my postdoc, and then I came back. So even with that knowings of the department, it was from a student perspective, and it is completely different when you're as a faculty. That's what I felt, right? So even when I get in, I have to build in the relationships with the professors here. So I proactively took step of setting that one-to-one conversation, going and meeting them, getting to know them, their research and how we could work together collaboratively. It could be a simple conversation, doesn't have to be formal, but short hallway conversations as well with your peers, with your colleagues here. That has really helped me because even though I know things here, I still don't know a lot of things. So sometimes I need to be able to be like, hey, I don't know this. Could you please help me? You know, just like being vulnerable and also asking that question helps because everybody is here to help. But if you ask them and if you're willing to be open about it, right? And in addition to that, the network we have is again with Claire and other new faculties we also have this assistant support group, which has been fantastic because we all share the journey that we all are going together. And in my early days, I was like, is it only me that is going through all these problems? And then when I talk to them, they're like, oh, okay, it is sort of a universal thing, and we got this together. You know, just even knowing that really gave me a boost. And so not just that, but they are also our connections, right? They are also our networks, building that for future work. That has been helpful. But again, like being open, vulnerable. Hey, I have no idea how this works. Can you help me? You know, just even simple things like that. It has really helped, and just approaching yourself proactively.
Yeah, so I'll add on to what Karuna mentioned. So I am at a research station. So I'm not on main campus. I'm actually the only person in my School of Food Science that is not on main campus. So for me, building those relationships with the School of Food Science was a little bit of a different approach. So I did that same thing as I made sure that I, within my first few months, set up meetings on Zoom with every person in my department so that I could get to know them, what they do, teach them a little bit about what my program was going to look like. And I think that was really beneficial to just help each other understand like where we could support or ask for help or benefit from the other department. But it also made it so that I wasn't a strange face when I popped onto like faculty meeting on Zoom, because again, I'm the only one off campus. As for the people at my research station, again, I'm the only School of Food Science off campus. So I spent a lot of time just educating people on what my goal was, why I was here, what I was doing, because I think that that was something to help them understand like why it was important to have a food science person at a agricultural research extension center. And then I did mention I'm 70% extension. So I spend a lot of time away from my office. So I've started putting up, and what I did within like the first year, and I've continued it since, is I have a board on my door that says exactly where I am. Like I'm in California collecting samples. I'm in this town teaching a training, and it helps them know like that I'm not in my office because of all these things that I'm doing. And also just helps them understand like what I'm doing, but then also how to get a hold of me, which I think has been really beneficial. And it's also started conversations. So the gentleman whose office is next to me will ask me about my trips or say that's really cool. And it brings that conversation into the hallway from interdepartmental people.
I think we all had similar experiences and challenges. So for me, when I started, it was a summertime. Barely nobody was in the campus, so I was just walking by myself and starting look for like the people coming back in when fall semester startup. But orientation definitely helps a lot to connect with other people, because remember, when you have orientation, there will be like so many faculty member starting to the same job in the same campus or the same institution like you, and they are also looking for a connection. So when I attend orientation, and there was like very good program here in the University of Maine campus, so it was like one of the first attempt for me to connect with other people, like try to get to know people, what they are doing, how they are doing, or what department or institution they are in. So it was one of the first attempt for me to get to know the people. The second one was like I try to attend almost every occasion or meetings or like seminars in the campus area, so that people know me, so that I start to know what other people are doing. So I am 100% extension. Even though I am in the campus in extension, I am also obligated to do some research. So, but I don't have that. So in order to start up research activities, I start to get to know people in the campus who have similar interests and similar background with me, so that I can start up with collaboration with them. It is okay. You cannot be like PI, you cannot start up writing proposal by yourself when you start up as a faculty member. But remember, it's always okay to collaborate with someone. You can be co-PI, you can like support person at the beginning, but later, once you learn how to manage writing a proposal, how to manage writing a paper by yourself, then you can be like PI and you can be like the corresponding author. So these were like very important for me to contact with the faculty member in the campus. In terms of the extension, I always ask help from my mentors, because they were the one know the food industry in the New England area. As I am especially contact with the seafood industry, like organizing HACCP courses and then sanitation courses. So I asked them how they contacted with the industry. What are the best way to contact with the industry people? What are their needs? What are their challenges? And then how I can fill the blank. So the previous people, like or the faculty members or my colleagues, they already have some contact with them, with the industry. So I ask the channels or the way how I can contact with them. So I start to send them email. I start to send them update, and I organize like some the trips and then some meeting in their processing plant, and then this is how I also contacted with the industry. As an extension, it is important that industry know we are here to help them and to develop some program with them. So if I summarize shortly. So you have to develop like strategies, how you are going to connect with the academia to do your research, and then with the industry, how you can work with them together. And then also if you are teaching, then you have to connect with the faculty member and to get their experiences and feedbacks, how you can prepare your teaching material and how you can teach in the classroom environment. So they are all challenging issues, but doesn't mean that you cannot do it. Everybody is going through the same thing. So we can give you advice, but remember, the best thing you can do is like you will develop your own program based on the institution you are there, based on the background, based on your personal abilities. So, but sooner or later you will figure it out. So at the first, it's really confusing and challenging, but by the time it gets easier, don't remember, it's always getting easier. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say the orientations, they're really important. You can like get a feeling of the culture of the institution, and also get to know people there in the same situation as you are. Within the department, I would say try to attend, all the formal, casual events that they have. Be proactive about approaching people, just schedule a meeting, ask them about their research, be kind of curious about and see how you can help them, what like part of your expertise can be like beneficial for them, and offer to help. I mean, if possible, and definitely considering the time that you have available, but just be proactive and really go for it.
Yeah, I'll add two things to I think what all the panelists brought up is so I heard all of them say about asking for help. So I work at an institution where I was handed my keys on the first day and I was told best of luck. I didn't have a lot of that orientation training. And so asking for help was really important. But I think back to the one question about how do you overcome imposter syndrome? I think for me at first, I felt like I was a burden asking for help all the time. And so I had to rephrase my mentality of that is instead of being like, I'm sorry, can you help me with this? Is like, I haven't learned this yet. Can you teach this to me? And saying it more in that sense of like, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to become better. And like, can you teach this instead of apologizing in a sense? Because I felt like I was a burden. And so I think that it took me a little while to change that mindset, but that really helped me because that's why we have a lot of these wonderful people at these institutions whose job it is to help with pre-grants or post-grants or all of these different aspects that I'm just not an expert in. And so I think overcoming that fear of asking for help is really important because we're not experts in everything we have to do in this job.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Murphy. That sums it up. To build connections and don't hesitate to seek help. I think that's applicable in every area of life as well. So moving to the next topic, which is pertaining to research and scholarly development, what advice do you have for a new faculty on establishing a productive research agenda amidst their other responsibilities? To add to this, we also have a question from Connie Weaver, since it's research and scholarly development. What are you being told or seeing at your institutions regarding federal government's new policies on funding in terms of strategies, expectations, tenure? So the overall aspect of funding issue, how are you tackling that along with your other responsibilities and handle an active research agenda?
Sure. So I think for the first question, how do you establish an effective research program? I think it comes back to that idea that is brought up a few times is understanding what you were hired for, what your position description is, and then also what your like academic split. So I love extension. It was really important to me that I found a position that had a heavy extension appointment, but I still do research. And so it's 30% research, 70% extension, but it feels 100 because the research really needs to be addressing the questions, the concerns from my industry. And so the extension really needs to be informed informing the research, and the research itself needs to be leading to extension. So for me to establish a really effective integrated research and extension program, I spent the first year, and I know that's one of the questions, but I can talk a little bit about like what my first year looked like. I spent a lot of windshield time, which to me was I went out and I met my stakeholders. I figured out what it was that they needed. What was the extension? What was the research that was really important and was needed by them within that first program? Because that's what I was hired to do, was to be that research and extension support for them. And so that was really important to me, is always listening to them, understanding what their needs are, because that's what's feeding into the applied research that I do. On to Connie's question. Yeah, go ahead.
Is
Connie.
your research under threat from funding cuts?
Yeah, so right now there is a lot of change to what funding looks like. So the majority of my funding in terms of research comes from either USDA, which has had a pause on all of their current calls for proposals. So we had some proposals ready to submit that have been halted because the RFPs have been withdrawn. And then my other funding comes from commissions. So I'm very lucky that I have a very supportive industry here in Washington State that does fund research. But yeah, there's been a lot of changes to what funding is going to or might look like. And how the university has approached it is it's currently a really fluid thing. Everything seems to unfortunately change every day. So the university is sending us updates as soon as they get them, as soon as they know, and then reaching out to the specific grants that it does impact. And so if you had a grant that was impacted by some of these changes, they had conversations specific to you about that grant. So at this moment in time, none of my grants have been paused that are ongoing, but we've seen that change in like grants that are being submitted. And so the university, being someone who's pre-tenure, has kind of approached it in the sense that like we're going to have to approach maybe tenure and some of these metrics a little differently in the coming years if the situation stays where it is right now, because they know that maybe in my first 2 years where there weren't all these changes, I was able to bring in $1 million of grant money, but now grant money isn't available. So as I go up for tenure, they'll look at that period of time a little bit differently, knowing that grant money is under a lot more threat right now. But again, I'm really lucky that I have commissions that are supporting me in ways that, might not be able to make up all of the loss that we're seeing in grant funding, but I still have a little bit of money to do research that's important to them because they're very supportive of research that is directly benefiting them.
And I second Claire on that as well, because the fundings that I look for is also, again, USD and NIFA, where there really is nothing to apply to right now with the calls for proposals not being out there, but also having that conversation with your department head in terms of the expectations for the tenure with all this going on, just being on that same page. It's not that we're not trying, but there really is nothing to try to, right, at this point. And so that has been helpful to at least get that assurance from the department head as well, and they do understand that. But again, yes, the federal funding's not there, but there's like little mini grants or internal grants that we can apply for, maybe some state grants. Like we had Board of Regents here, which luckily did not get a cut, which, well, there was some rumors, but it did not get hit. And so we were able to get those funds. So trying to look for funds maybe through industry, like Claire said, or some other areas in these times has been helpful. And again, coming back to the question on how do you establish a productive research agenda again, before you even start the position, you already know what your research is going to look like, right? Your short-term, your mid-term, your long-term goal. What do you envision your research program to look like? And so you have sort of that idea. And once you step in, you build onto the projects that you already have been working on, sort of, right? Because you have an expertise on that. You are not going to completely navigate on a different journey in terms of your research. So you already have built those preliminary data, Just for instance, in my case, I did apply for a little mini grant when I was in my postdoc, and that finished off. I did have some preliminary data, and immediately when I got in a couple of weeks, there was a deadline for the Board of Regents grant, and that's what I applied for because I did have that expertise. My little bit of methods was written, preliminary data was there, and so that helped me to apply for that grant immediately when I got it. The next thing is onboarding your students, um, getting good students to support you while you're starting out your career is so important. Training them in your first few months, first semester at least, training them in the micro work, or whatever is your research area, getting them trained, starting to think about your research grants and ideas, and setting up that lab, right? Because if you have your grad students, undergrad student workers, they'll help you to start getting that lab set up, doing all those biosafety protocols, which takes time to get approved. And just that itself takes one semester on its own, right? So it's a process, but having that idea before you go. So one of the mentors that I had, they also recommended build your lab protocols before you start your position, right? Because you know what kind of lab if it's a food micro lab, you already know like you need to have a BSL-2 lab protocol, so you can have a rough draft. So once you get in, you already have that ready. Now, was I that proactive? No, but I did have a little bit of draft. I did not have completely ready protocols, but I did have, the resources that I needed in my folder so that once I stepped in, I just needed to dig deeper and then be like, okay, this is my protocols, and I get started. So those were some of the things that helped me get the momentum started for the research.
And I'll add something on to that. I also think it's unique to you. So it sounds like Karuna started with a student within her first semester. I waited a year to take a student because I was at a place where I didn't have the resources yet. It took me a year and a half to get a biosafety cabinet set up at my research station. And so I can't do biosafety level 2 work without a biosafety cabinet. And so to me, I didn't feel like I was at a place where I could provide the resources a student needed. And so I waited, and I thought that worked really well for me because it let me think about some of those things, about what was important to my program, what I wanted to do, without having to worry about a student not having what they needed either from the institution or from me yet. But that was an approach I think worked well for me, and that might be specific to the area and the situation I was in. And so I just wanted to point out that it's really different between every faculty member.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is important what your job requirements are. Like you need to understand how much research you need to do, how much teaching and how much extension. Starting research is really challenging, especially these days, because most of the national fundings are like paused or frozen. So what you can do is like if you have startup funding, just plan how you can spend this startup funding and then start like little bit like experimental design and like little bit research. So this will give you like startup. And the other things, best way to do is like, for example, for me, I am in the extension doesn't have lab itself. So even though I am writing like some research proposal and applying for research proposal, what I do is like I collaborate with the faculty members in other departments so that I can use their lab space, and then I can integrate my students in their lab space, so this is the best way. So remember, collaboration is the key word. So we cannot do everything by ourselves, but collaboration will give us opportunity to do research and to learn from other people. Remember, every faculty member, everybody has different disciplines. So when I'm collaborating with other people, like I learn how they are managing their lab, their students, how they are become successful, what are their like the future plans. So this is a learning process for research also. The other things what I have done is like as soon as I start up, I am in the Maine. So Maine is kind of unfortunate in terms of like the funding. So really not, I'm like some incidents happen, and then we had like very big cut in our fundings in May. So I start up, and then all of a sudden we got like the funding is frozen, and like we got like extension fundings are frozen also. So then it happened to us that we cannot apply for so many like the research options opportunities that we could have. So what I have done is like, I kind of switch my research focus from extension to research, and then try to collaborate with the faculty member doing little bit research out of extension. So did this give me like to little bit get out of my focus, but still do the research, which is requirement for my position. And before doing that, I also discussed with my mentors and my supervisor, saying that, we know that all the federal grants are frozen, and like the state-wise funding from coming from state to extension is also frozen in Maine. So is it possible for me to just little bit get out of my extension and do a little bit research? And then he said it is okay. So they understand these are the hard times for everybody, especially for the people who just start up their position. So just understand what is going on, and it's always good to discuss and ask your supervisor or mentors, because they are here to help you and to give you your direction, and to also connect you with other people. Like there was a time that I was like, to whom I can connect with in the state was in the university. So I just learned that there's a Sea Grant here. There are other people in the different University of Maine is like one of the main university in the state of the Maine, and we have like different campuses all over the state. So I just learned that there are like other labs like Cherry. There are other people not in the campus that I can connect with them, and they are doing research. So it's always to start up as a like the co-PI or senior pencil. So by the time you learn how the thing's going on, you can start up your research program by yourself. So, but it is always asked to have help, and it's always helpful to ask other people, can I collaborate with you? Is it possible that we can collaborate? This kind of questions doesn't hurt. And people are very nice. Remember, they are like always helping, and they are like always here to help you. Thank you.
Yeah, regarding the question about establishing a productive research, I guess, at least from my perspective, the first thing that you need to understand is that you're not going to be as productive at the beginning as you was like during your postdoc, for example. The transition would kind of charge a price, and usually productivity goes down initially. So I would say that one strategy that has been working for me is pretty much set a time for research, and by research I don't mean exclusively being in the lab, but considering like writing or just reading, and that's non-negotiable. Every day I have like a block time. No meetings, nothing can be scheduled on that. So you create this kind of routine. I don't know if that works for everybody. I mean, it's been working for me so far. It's really hard once you're like used to spend so much time in the lab doing research as a postdoc, or like even when you're collecting final data for your PhD, and then you transition here and you actually spend a lot of time away from lab doing pretty much the office work. That's something that I'm still trying to, understand and be comfortable with, because most of the times I still want to go back to the lab and do the research myself. I guess it's all comes down to like how you strategize that. Make sure that you try to come up with strategy that works for you, and stick to that. And regarding funding right now, it is definitely like weird times. Uncertainty just kind of sometimes freezes you. You can like progress as you would like, but my approach to that's been pretend that nothing has changed. Just keep doing what you think, what you plan. Try to go after industry partners, some foundations, so alternative sources of funding, and just keep doing your work.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll add one thing
Yeah.
so that we make sure we got everything in Connie's question about how this is impacting us. It also is impacting the university in a lot of ways. And so I think it's important to be aware of what this means as just someone who's working in academia. It means we're getting budget cuts as an entire institution. We're losing some of our personnel. And so I think it's going to impact universities if it continues to stay the way it is. And it's unfortunate, but I think it was mentioned a little bit. We have a job to do, especially I in extension. I want to make sure that I'm still there for my stakeholders. So if it means that research maybe isn't getting done as quickly, or I'm not getting maybe all of the support from some of these other personnels, I think, keeping in mind that I was hired to help my industry and doing what I can with the resources that I have. I think trying to do the same with less or more with less just isn't possible, isn't an option. And I'm not going to try to do that because I know that it's going to burn myself and my team out, but making sure that I'm still doing what I can with what I have.
May I add something regarding the research? It is always good to contact with the people in the research administration, Office of Research Administration. Since most of the federal funding are in pause right now, they may be aware of like the small funding, like some seed fundings that can help you to stand up in your feet at the first couple years. So get in contact with them and have a like appointment with them. Explain what you would like to do and who you can contact with. So they sometimes get your CV and then they connect you with the other faculty member in your institution, or like sometimes like from also different institutions. So it's always good to have a good contact with the people in the Office of Research Administration. So they are the one will help you a lot when you are going through your research activities. Thank you.
Yes, I hope that answers Connie's other question as well. What is the future of research and training involving safety if we lose guidance or support from the government? So moving to the next theme, considering time constraints, it's about professional growth. So I'll directly go to the last question in the chat. How do you evaluate your progress and set goals across extension, teaching, and research and service? And as part of that, how have you approached managing startup funds and grants? Were there any helpful resources you relied on? Some of the part of the question is answered, but you could cover the professional growth part.
Sure, I'll go first, but if anyone else wants, did you want to go?
I would say that it depends of probably it would be good to discuss with your department head. How is the evaluation? Like usually we have a yearly evaluation of performance. You can also just work on set up goals for yourself, based on what you pretty much want to accomplish, and based on the history of the department and the institution. So I think that's something that you can definitely get more information with your department head and with your colleagues that been in the same position, excuse me, as you are right now.
Yeah, so institutions have formal review processes. So I go through one every year and it looks different depending on like if you're in a formal review or informal review or a 10-year review. It looks really different. So I keep going back to extension because extension is really important to me. Extension is something that's really difficult sometimes to measure metrics. And I find that when we talk about research or teaching research, they often look at like, how many publications do you have? How many research papers did you bring in? Or extension is about behavior change. And so to me, it's been important just from a perspective of, actually going into these reviews, but then making sure that my program is successful is measuring some of these long and short-term behavior changes through pre and post tests, or even things when I'm asked to do technical support, having them, write what that meant, just a sentence or two about the impact, because that's what extension is. And so making sure that I show up to these reviews that are formal with some of these metrics that are maybe not necessarily, here's the number of publications, but here's some of the impact statements of people that I've been able to help or support. And then that's something that to me also helps me understand, am I doing my job the way that I think I should be? And then the other part of that question was startup funds. I think it's very different. I was given startup funds with a 4-year timeline and I spent them in 2. And so I think when you're writing up your startup funds and thinking about what you're doing, I think it comes down to understanding the space or what resources already exist and then what resources are really needed for you to do your program effectively. And so the majority of my startup funds were spent on facilities or travel, because to me, as someone in extension, it was really important in that first year to get out there and meet my stakeholders, to attend all of these grower events, to make sure that my face was known and my voice was heard to the people who I was supposed to be helping. And so that's where I prioritized my funding, was making sure that I had a biosafety cabinet, making sure I had a vehicle so that I could go do all these extension things, and then making sure that I had the money to meet the growers where they were instead of requiring them to come meet me.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with both of y'all. Just to add on to it, what I started, just a little small tip. What I started is immediately on the day you start your job, have a Word document where you just throw in everything that you did, like just start throwing in everything. Let's say we spoke on this webinar today, right? Okay, this date I spoke on this webinar. I submitted this abstract, my publications, my students, so that helps, because I forget things after a month, like what I did, I don't, even after a week, I'll start forgetting things. So that really helps, is like start documenting every little thing that you've done. Another thing that helped was sort of like a weekly or every 2 weeks meeting with my department head in the first semester, just so that I know what's the department culture, what are the expectations for tenure. And so they will slowly navigate that throughout the semester. And then you pick back on and you're sort of independent after that. But just to know that, scheduling that meeting with the department head. And then from there, I got to know, okay, there's this tenure packet requirement, right? And then you take that document and then start formatting it according to your tenure packet. And so now every year, every week, every month, you're building onto that packet, helps with your annual evaluations document. And by your 4th or 5th year, when you go up for tenure, you already have a draft of your tenure packet and you're not scratching your head and be like, okay, where do I start from, right? Everything that I did. So that is a little bit of tip, that when you're starting, start documenting everything. That helps you build confidence. And so the second part of that question was managing startup funds. I completely agree with Claire. Depending on your position, is it an extension research teaching, or just research teaching? Try to prioritize your startup according to that. In my case, I am heavily research and a little bit of teaching. So for me, getting my research program started, getting my lab started, recruiting students is very much important. And so I use my startup fund in that area, as to like building my lab, getting the biosafety cabinets, right? Just to get that started. But if I feel like, okay, it's gonna take tons of money out of my startup, and my startup is for 5 years, but if that's gonna take tons of money for my startup, and I'm like, what am I gonna do in my 3rd or 4th year if this situation still goes on, if there's no federal funding or anything? So if there's something that I can use from other lab, there is a shared lab, other food safety labs, if I can use those equipment, I'm okay. Because at least there's something within that department that we can share and use. So trying to like think of it like which is a non-negotiable, which is a must-have thing, and which is a thing that, yeah, I can have it in a long-term time, but I don't need it right away. So trying to prioritize again your startup funds, what things to spend money on. Those have been useful, and looking for those little internal grants or every other grant opportunities. And again, don't worry about making it perfect. You perfect the grant as you go along writing every other grants, right? So don't worry about making it perfect. Just push it through and send it out. So that way you start having a draft for your next grant already. Oh, where's my conflict for interest? Here is it. Where is my CV? Here it is. So you already start having that, and you start building onto it so that you have stronger and stronger packet every other time you apply for the grant for.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of you guys, and I would like that couple of things. Like first couple years, like little more challenging, because you need to understand what are expected from you. So and also your first package appointment comes like very quickly. You start up and then you all of a sudden realize that, oh guys, my package is due. So it is important, just quick tip for you, just try to determine who are going to be in your peer review committee ahead of time. And then start to build up your package one by one, like every month, like putting on something, and then try to understand what are the expectations on your package. So, like there are like so many, like the layers in your package. So you may need to like fill out some of them. Some of them will be optional. Just try to understand what are the expectations in your reappointment package. And then you can go back and try to establish your like research extension and teaching program based on your like reappointment package. So it's good startup until you understand how you are going to establish your reappointment package. So in my case, I'm like 100% extension. So my startup funding was like really, really minimal. So how I'm spending is like, for me, I have to develop like teaching or training for the seafood industry and food industry. So I spent some of my startup funding to establish like the seafood HACCP training courses for the industry. So I spent some of my money to train myself and to get certificate. And after that certificate, now I'm teaching seafood HACCP, and these all courses I'm building up a little bit funding for myself, because I'm charging for the industry, and then by this like training, I'm also establishing a like a little bit of like the funding for myself. And the other things expected from me is like to teach sanitation courses. So I am also developing, like we have a macro batch in University of Maine, which is like 3-level courses. So we are kind of needed to develop also this kind of online and face-to-face courses in 3-level. So I am also working on these courses. So I spend some of my startup funding to develop these courses, but in return, once people start to get these courses, so like I will also build up my funding for the future opportunities. And also it is always good to attend some of the conferences, regional meeting. These are good to know what is going on in the extension world. Like as a student, I didn't know what's extension and how it should be done as a professional way. So depending on like where we are, what is our institution, the expectation can be different from the extension. So it is good to know, and it's good to understand how people are doing it. So don't forget, your mentors are always there to help you. So it's important to have like bi-weekly or monthly meeting, and then like try to explain, okay, so I am planning to do, and then other things, ask your mentor before you take the action. You can plan something and ask if it is okay to go next step. Sometimes you can spend all this time and then your mentor said, oh, this is not what we are expecting from you. So don't spend time, like it's always ask their opinion or head of the department or your mentor. So is it okay if I take this action next? So these are my plan for my extension, my research or my teaching. Do you think it is okay to do it? So if it is not something that they are approving, so don't spend the time and just move something else. It is okay to make a mistake. This is the long journey. Don't forget, okay? But you will learn by the time. Don't get panic. Be quiet. Be calm, and also celebrate your small wins. These are like small achievements. Make a big step at the end. Don't forget. So everything doesn't happen in once. Things take time. So take your time. Try to understand. Do little improvement every day or every week, and then you will see that when you go back, you will establish a lot at the end. So don't be afraid.
Thank you. Considering time constraints, I thought we might have another possibility to ask another question, but I would like to keep this short. How about, do you have an advice in a word or two that, considering a career in academia, that you wish you had known when you started? Just in a word or two, so we could wrap up this session.
Can I offer something? Since we are here on extension, I know like extension is a big faculty, big family or big community. So we can have kind of like voluntary, like the supervisor work. If somebody is starting in a new position in extension, they can choose any of us from other institution as a mentor, or like like something. Sometimes like we can help them as a voluntary basis, so they can like, I'm like anyone can welcome to, and anyone is welcome to reach out to me, if they have question, how they can start up, if they have a problem. Sometimes you may not be able to ask your supervisor some question. You may think that, oh, it's so silly, so simple, like if I just question how I'm gonna look like. So don't worry, you can always reach out to me, or like I am sure you can reach out to other people in this panel too. So we are happy to help you, and we are here to help you, because I know when you are graduate student, you are undergraduate student, we teach them like so many good things, so many good information, but you don't know what is extension and how you can do extension. So I think our curriculum is missing the extension part in terms of the workforce development. So you can reach out to any of us if you have any questions. So that's my
Thank you, Dr. Evrendilek. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to the panelists. Considering time constraint, thank you to all our panelists, Dr. Kharel, Dr. Murphy, Dr. Akdemir Evrendilek, and Dr. Pola for sharing such valuable insights. Your experiences, advice will surely help guide many early career professionals and students considering academic careers. Thanks also to everyone who joined us today. We appreciate your time and engagement. Please keep an eye out for upcoming events from Phi Tau Sigma, Future Directions and Student Relations Committee. Wishing you all a great week ahead, not a weekend. So we're just starting off.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.